So you got to see this guy. He's British. He's like my age. His name is Ross Edgerly. And he's he's a CrossFitter. And he's really in shape. He's a sports nutritionist, but then he's a marathon extreme swimmer. So he, and of course he's like 6 years ago was on Rogan. Never seen him. Of course, the amount of stuff I consume on there, I was kind of shocked. Never seen him anywhere else. Swam the English Channel, swam all the way around Great Britain, then wanted to, and they're allowed stops, right? They take GPS coordinates. And so basically the Great Britain swim, he like swam for 6 hours, then would sleep for 6. And it was like 100 some days for him to get all the way around. Just bananas. And then he wanted to do the longest nonstop swim. So he wanted to do it in Loch Ness. So I watched a video on, he goes and does Loch Ness, and I don't know how many hours he's in. He's like 50 in, and he just can't touch the boat. They can't touch them. He can't get out, or can't touch land, can't touch anything. But they can throw him, and again, being a sports nutritionist, he's sponsored by all these supplement things, so he can eat stuff. They're working on his food on the thing, whether it's oatmeal, whatever. But he's got to, he's got to tread water. Even if you're in a good, buoyant suit, like you got to be able to tread water just to stop and, drink a shake or do whatever. So he does Loch Ness and he wants to do the longest nonstop swim. And in the video, they're in the dark and you can hear the guys in the boat talking to him. And he's like, "Hey, do you guys see that dog?" There's like a doctor on the boat and they're like, we got to keep an eye on him because now you're getting weird and it's cold, right? So at some point, after that point of him saying that, he still swims like another 12 hours after, but then finally they pull him. So he doesn't make it. And he got to go to the hospital. I think he's got like hypothermia, something else. So then he's like, okay, well, I think his thought process, this is too cold. I gotta go somewhere else. So he goes to Italy, organizes this whole swim in some lake in Italy. Gonna do the same thing. Well, then they have world record heat wave come from Egypt to Italy. So he's swimming in this water with no wetsuit, but just like, tight shorts. Might even have like a Speedo on, right? Same thing. Just lathered in this sunscreen stuff. The water temp or the air temp gets to like 114. They have to pull him after I don't remember how many hours they pull him out because he's got like almost like boiling himself in this water and heat stroke. So then it goes on like for another year or two and he just wants to complete this swim. So he gets the idea that they do this long distance kayak thing on the Yukon. It's like thousands of miles, right? Down the Yukon River in Canada. He's like, well, he reaches out to him. He goes, you guys can kayak that thing. And he goes, do you think I could swim it? And then like coordinates all these people in Canada, all this stuff. So then he does. And so that was like a year or so ago and he does it. He does like I can't remember how long it was. I think it was like 72 hours and they do it in kilometers. So by the time he's done, I think it's like 360 some miles, through the night, sleep deprived, the whole thing. And then like you get to the end, like you've made it, you have to so he's got to crawl himself out onto shore for it to actually be like, that's the end of however he goes. He just collapses on there. He's got the British accent and he's like, it's kind of fun because he's super great. He got a lot of gratitude and he's got this high pitched laugh and everything's kind of funny. Like no matter what's going on, he's got a great attitude. And they asked him one time, like 10 hours in, have you gone to the bathroom? The doctor's checking out. You relieved yourself? Oh, yeah. I hate to tell you guys, shit in my wetsuit about 3 hours in. So then he gets to the end and he's just laying on the shore and they're covering him in the heat blanket like you would coming off of a triathlon. They pull him on the boat. They had to cut his wetsuit off. They get him to the doctor and he's just delusional and he's got cameras on him. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is no way that this is going to smell good for you guys. I have definitely shit multiple times in my wetsuit. But anyway, that long story was the whole thing that popped up on my feed was he like 2 months ago or 3 months ago, he swam around Iceland.
Hmm.
And, like it was like, I think it was 100 and
super cold.
Super cool. And the top end of that being he swam in the Arctic Circle. So, and it took 117 days. And there's some days on that north end with the Arctic weather, they would have to go back to port and stay for like 3 days and then go back to their actual GPS coordinates just so he could start again. But I was saying, I was telling a couple other people about it. I was just enamored by it because like they show the camera and he's out there swimming, and it just looks like this, right? It just looks like waves. And then the camera will turn to the boat and they have one of those 68, 70-foot actual racing yachts, that they can stay on. And they turn the camera to the boat and like the crew and the boat is like all over the place. And he's out there just swimming in the ocean. But anyway, I'll send you gotta like, there's so much. He's got a channel of stuff on there. It's so unbelievable. And I think he's just kind of fun to watch because it's almost like watching Cam Hanes run or some of those guys, but it is crazy. And now because he's British, he's friends with Tom Aspinall and all the power lifters. And so then there was a video not too long ago of he takes Tom Aspinall out swimming with him. And he's like, well, you're a big guy. And he's like talking to him about his strokes. He's got him in the wetsuit and he's like changing everything, like how he could be more buoyant and swim. And he's like just from one dock to another dock, like just trying to get him to understand how to swim long distances more efficiently. It's pretty interesting. So yeah, anyway, last 2 weeks of like endless consumption of this guy. I'm like just enamored by the extreme nonsense of it all. But the Iceland thing, I was like, of course they're showing it all. And I'm like, I go to Iceland. But
Yeah. Well, it seems like you're retired too.
yeah, I got nothing else going on.
The another one is, and I sent you some clips from the Chad Wright, the former SEAL, right?
Yeah.
And he's a ultimate marathoner type guy, road races, and he does 100 miles. He did one 250 miles. But he was talking about these two races that were one was around COVID starting, and the guy whoever had the race was like, well, bullshit, we're gonna have the race and want people outside. Anyway, the race is called Last Man Standing. And so they've got all these ultra marathoners, and it's literally you're the last person still running. And his first year was 30 hours and he won. And his second year, he's 38 hours. And it was just down to him and this other guy. And, like I said, delusional and all that, or, out of it. And the guy, he made it, to whatever the station was, the guy that came in second, and he just collapsed. His body just failed him, But but he said, well, 38 hours. I don't know who he was talking to, but he goes, yeah, and I was a little pissed because I felt like I could go a lot more. And he goes, I really wanted to make it 48 hours, so I could say I ran 2 days straight. I was like, wow. But I love those kind of people. Just like, yeah, it's not for anybody. It's just for me.
Yeah, and it proves what the human body's capable of, right? And that's why I think I
the
like
mind
that too. The mind, yeah, the body's probably shot, but yeah, you can will yourself
like
way beyond what you think you're capable of.
They always say that, right? Your mind will quit 100 times, before your body will.
Yeah,
and you just don't know what it can do.
just
I'm
perception.
just gonna pull over here and have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Call her good. It's far. That's far enough.
Day and a half.
I like that. I don't know. I'm halfway tempted to go back and do some distance stuff because I have good endurance that way. I mean, hard to look at me now and think that, but I mean, when I get in shape, I can do. I'm not a speed guy, but I'm not built for speed. But I can go. Once I get into a groove, done the marathons, done an ultra marathon. It's just one of those. Everything is kind of whatever your genetics are, right? You can do it. I used to go to those marathons and people just take off like a bullet, and I'm like, really fast. Now they're super ultimate people, right? They can, and you've seen them, they can run 4-minute miles for 26 miles. That's not old man, but just the average people, they'll take off and you go, and you learn to go, man, I'm just plodding along here. And somewhere around, 15 miles, you pass them and you never see them again. And some
Hmm.
people quit, some people, you know, they might make it, kind of thing. There's just that kind of the plodding thing, right? Where you just go, I can keep going. I like that concept, you know.
Well, that's the good, like, the one foot in front of the other situation, right? So I work still with so many people like within CrossFit, which is not, it's not running 26 miles, it's not even running 10, but it's that, and you've been in those classes too, where, there's that competitive energy, which is so fun, and it pushes people beyond what they would do in their own house. But because of that energy, whether it's a 12-minute Metcon or 20-minute Metcon or 25, though you'll watch them go out like a bat out of hell. And I spend so much time coaching people. I'm like, I need you to start with the same. You're going to get tired. Everybody's going to get tired. I need you to start with some sort of sustainable energy that you could potentially keep that 20 minutes from now. But you watch, so many people can't stop themselves. They just go so hard in the first 2 to 5 minutes that energy bar is gone. And then, we're walking around looking for the water bottle. We're, going to get the chalk bucket that's the furthest away. Like there's no rhythm to the pace, and that's where I like to enjoy that. Right. And then there's always can you quiet the mind? Can you put everything away when it really sucks? There's that aspect of it too, which I'll talk to people a lot. CrossFit for me is very similar to grappling, right? Only when you quit, because that's, you're talking about the mind over the body. And it takes a special, when we talk about grappling, you have to do it for a long period of time to know, when someone's quit, even watching them from the outside. No one else does. It looks like they got caught in a submission or they got thrown in whatever, but you're like, you mailed that. You got tired and you went to it and you mailed that in, or you moved yourself into this position to get caught because you've had enough. And then you have to go back yourself and have this self-reflection of like, yeah, I quit a little bit. And I think like with CrossFit, that's the same thing. I talk to people when I'm working with them. It's like, only you took an extra break, or you stood around a little longer than you needed to, and that mental aspect of, can you push? Can you
Yeah, well,
push when you need to? And can you pace it?
the people, and when I first heard the concept of it, I took it this way too, kind of negatively, until you learn. Uh, and it applies to a lot of things physically. It's gaming the wad, right? So
Yeah.
uh, there's that's goes into the whole pace thing and stuff, like drop the bar, you know, drop the bar. Don't set the bar down, drop the bar, and in your reps, and then then it's just a rep at a time, right? A rep at a time, a
Yep.
rep at a time. It's not 20, it's 4 sets of 5, whatever, you know, count to 3, whatever makes it easier. Chunk it out in your mind, uh, there is a point.
Or
There's a
singles.
point for, yeah, there's a point where everybody's body's going to, it does. It just does. It's biological. Your body's going to shut down at some point. But again, your mind will quit before your body does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just interesting. I mean, I think there's a lot of aspects to that in all of life, right? Just kind of. And listen, I have caught myself when I don't want to fucking do this. I just don't want to do this. I don't want to do it at all. I don't like it. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be something intellectual at work or whatever it is. And you force yourself through it, and and then you go, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Right.
Yeah, all those things feel better than quitting on yourself. Uh, people will, and CrossFit's a good example of it. How many times have you seen, or you see people who look like Adonis, right? And and they come out of the gate, hot, like you're saying and stuff, but how many people have we known with the dad bods and stuff who have uh, one, unbelievable endurance, and two, they have a second gear that nobody else has. You know, we've seen these guys 250 pounds, you know, look like just the normal Joe, you know, maybe a over the hill high school footballer. And they start doing these things and they're just blowing past all these other people. They just got
Right.
they have a gear that they go in and they just it keeps increasing, you know. It's amazing, you know, really. It's kind of fun to watch.
And it's interesting. Like I like it because I feel like uh, there's this dance, right? Yeah, and I don't want to use the word easy. Try to make it like gaming a workout. It's not. It's just being smarter. And we talked about this before. You've done it. You've worked super hard. Um, and it's just how can you be most efficient? So because at some point, I like again, I think about it like a this dance between two things. At some point, you're going to be exhausted, not fall down exhausted, but pretty close. But have enough in the tank to quiet your mind when your mind's telling you want to quit. That's the dance. That's the spot I like to be in, right? And you hate to be there because you know what it's going to feel like, but there's that little couple of minutes where everybody does. You have that subconscious telling you to slow down or it's too much, but do you have enough will to also mitigate? Do you have enough energy at the exact same time to finish or push through or whatever? I was like, I really enjoy that little spot, and you hate it because you know it's coming. You know, some workouts, if you've done it long enough, you know what you're going to get into before the clock even starts. You're like, oh, this is going to be what it's going to be. But I like can you tell yourself to shut up when you need to? Well, that's the fun. That's the fun part. I was listening. I know said this on the last podcast. I spent, when I'm driving or whatever, I'll throw probably once a week. I got Rogan on, and I referenced last time about he had Matthew McConaughey on. I was laughing because I have a cold plunge in my house. It's the first thing I do in the morning, when I wake up. And he was talking to McConaughey about, because people ask me all the time, you're so disciplined. You get up and you jump in that cold plunge every single day. You're just so mentally strong. And he goes, are you kidding me? Every single day I stand outside of that thing. Every single day. And I tell myself I don't want to get in here. And he goes, but then I got to tell myself to shut up and get in. And I was talking to Blair about it because she does it too. And I was like, that's exactly it. Every day before I put my first foot in, you're like, oh, it's going to be cold. I'm like sitting this thing for 3 to 5 minutes. And then you get in and it's fine. You quiet your mind and you're done. You're happy you did it. But every day there's always that little dance of, I don't really want to I don't want to get in here today. Still warm from waking up, or the windows are open and it's cold outside. So now you're cold before you get in. You're like, all right, well, here we go. But that thing inside workouts too, I think that's such a good test for people, right? Because that we have that stuff all the time. I don't want to
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, yeah, it's the little kid in us, you know, like I said, don't want to go to school, don't want to do this, don't want to do that, you know, but in that, and I know what you're talking about when you get to that point where, you're starting to hit the wall, you know, is that quick? I hit the wall. I want to quit. I can't quit. I keep going. You just do
Mm-hmm.
that little cycle goes faster, you know. As soon as you have the thought, you start picking up the weight or doing whatever you got to do, or grabbing the bar, or whatever it is, you know. And then those little victories, that one rep, then suddenly sometimes you just take off and you kind of space out for a while. You've done a lot more than you thought you were going to do. So it's it's an interesting thing. I know and this is not really about whether somebody's in shape or not in shape or doing that kind of activity, but uh, I mean, I look around a lot at people, just going to the store, and going, man, they're just in rough shape. I mean, people are just uh, obese, and it's not, a lot of it is a lot of it's the discipline in their eating, but a lot of it is the food we've been fed too. We know that,
Right.
and that's a shame. But Um, I look at people and go, God, they were way too young to look that bad. You know, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm 66, but I can still look at somebody in their 40s and go, uh, buddy, you're like 80 pounds overweight.
Mm-hmm.
You can't feel good. You cannot feel good, uh, and they don't want to be the way they are and stuff, but they've got to, at some point you got to, because listen, the chances you get from the 40s to 66 might be rough. The
Right.
here's the thing about it when you go to cross that bridge, whatever it is, uh, the toll could be pretty heavy. So that's where I'm always kind of thinking about. Uh, do I need to do that? No, I should do this. Okay, it's sort of like gaining the wad, right? In your life, you're going, hmm, I think I probably need to let go of the bar there and do 1 reps. Like you say, there's
Right.
always this kind of thing in everything you do, like going, oh, I'd like to do that. Yeah, but should you do that? You know, and
That's interesting that you bring that up. Of course, I think we probably talked about in the very beginning. One of our first podcasts, I was talking about things in which it's my own personal belief that would enhance your life, and obviously have a life geared around physical fitness and helping other people do that. And I've tried to work on, the empathy for people, right? And understanding the thought process of most people as much as I can. And everybody's different and different backgrounds and how you're taught with food and activity growing up and stuff. But I think when like now I've started to look at it from as people are struggling, maybe they're struggling to make a change, that I've narrowed it down to three things that most people, like if I sit with somebody now, I'm like, honestly, at the end of the day, here's the deal. You want to look good, you want to feel good, but ultimately you want to have fun. And what I think most people, from my perspective, is they don't truly believe that they can have all three. If you want to have fun all the time, so like you were talking about, let's talk about from a nutrition standpoint, fun being, I want to have a donut whenever I want to have a donut. I want to drink cocktails 6 nights a week because I enjoy it and like I just like doing it. Or I have pizza whenever I want to have pizza. There's that category. And if I want to do all that, that's ultimately going to be a detriment to looking like I want to and feeling good in general. Then there's that I want to make that transition because right now I don't feel good. So I want to look good and feel good. What I don't want to start doing it because it's going to suck because there's no way I'm going to have fun, right? I'm going to live like a monk. I'm going to eat chicken and broccoli every single day, and this is going to suck. And it's like you said, gaming the workout or gaming your life. So I try to lately, I'm working on something where I'm like, what if you could learn that you could look good, feel good, and have fun, but you just understood how to gamify your life a little bit, right? 90 to 95% of the time, make the choices that are better for you, even if sometimes they're not what you want to do. And then it opens you up. That discipline opens you up to freedom of you can go on a date night with your spouse. You can go out with the guys. You can have a hunting trip. And it's going to have little to no effect on your overall health and fitness because it's just a short window. It's like, and that's where I feel for people. It's like you can have all of those things if you could just figure out how to keep it within the rails and it could transcend the rest of your life. And then the other thing I hear a lot, I think it's mostly you'll hear this from guys too. It's like if they are just doing and eating whatever they want, I don't want to be strict and disciplined with that stuff now because that's not fun. And besides, when is it going to impact me? That's the back end of my life anyway. And I'm like, that's an okay conversation until it's the last 5 or 10, right? And now you're dealing with, extreme health problems that, yes, they're genetic, but you may have sped them up based on your own choices. And I'm like, that's okay thing to say until you're there. Then you're like, you can't reverse it now. Now you've gotten too far into the workout. You've spent too much of your energy and it's over. Now it's going to be trouble.
yeah, it's treat. the battle is always, is it a treat or is it a way of life? You know,
Right.
and listen, I go through stages of every night of the week. Oh, Matt's having a bowl of ice cream. No, whatever. Uh, is that sustainable? No, but you gotta decide at some point uh, that because when I look at people my age and older, and believe me, I've got more waiting rooms in front of me than behind me. But and I go to the doctor enough to know. But I look at people who are around my age and rough, really rough, and God bless them, they're fighting all kinds of things, but how much of them were self-induced too. So,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta, and the other thing is not looking for somebody to answer your question for you. You got all the capability right in front of you. Just look in the mirror. You can do it. If you really want to do it and be, oh, that's easy to say and stuff. And it is difficult for people who were never physically active in their whole life. Which is almost inconceivable to me. But there are plenty of people like that, never done anything physical, and so they come to it later in life, midlife, whatever, and they want to come to the gym, they want to have a trainer, and they want to do these things. And those kind of people do need the motivation, and they do need somebody in their ear telling them they can do it. And uh, but there's also in that group, there's a type of person who wants a babysitter. You know, they
Yeah.
want you to tell you, oh yeah, it was okay you know, that you went on this 2 week binge and got off your program and stuff. And yeah, we'll get back on it and stuff. And it's kind of like this, and they need to kind of take some responsibility themselves. What you can tell people all day long until you're hoarse in your business, but ultimately they're going to have to do it. And you know, and it's frustrating, right? When you talk to people and they say, well, why don't you do this? And people would always ask me, and we've maybe talked about it before, but what's your favorite exercise, or what's the best exercise? Anything you'll do regularly, it's good. You
Right.
know, just anything. If you were doing nothing and then you started to walk a mile, you're way ahead of the game, you know, than
Mm-hmm.
before you started. So it doesn't really matter. It's something that you can sustain and do regularly. You're going to feel better about it. Then you're going to start wanting to do more of it. Maybe that uh, results in you changing some part of your diet, or sleep or whatever it is. But just having that little taste of feeling good for some people is uh, uh, life altering because they've never thought. I can imagine just being heavy and sedentary your entire life, and you can see this in people like once they get past 30, usually mid 30s to 40, and your feet hit the floor and you go feel like shit. Or just like that's a whole battle. I mean, think of all the challenges your life has, professionally, financially, familially, family, and then you add to that you don't physically feel well, all day, just and then what do you do to soothe your stress? What do you do? All the bad things. I'll I'll
Cope.
have a drink. I'll have some food. It makes me feel better momentarily. As you're laying in your bed, with your belly full of whatever, and you got sleep apnea.
Sleep
you know,
apnea.
you
Yeah.
know. So
It's
so it's a tough deal, but and listen, man, I got to get back on the horse. I mean, I'm fairly active for my age, but I know I'm not near doing what I'm capable of. But now that my schedule's a little more my own, then what else are you doing? You know, well, what we work on the old man.
Right. And I think that's such a good point you make, because I think in all those aspects, you were talking about work, relationships, whatever, from my perspective, we are all seeking some level, whether it's your finances, right? We're all seeking some level of control, right? So we've talked a couple of podcasts ago about your career choices. Like, I want to control, and I'm using different verbiage right now, but you're not unhappy in the position you're at right now. So could I make the decision to go do something else that makes me happier? That is a level of control on your goals, your finances, whatever, and controlling, almost like, your destiny of what you want to do. And the way that I look at it, if you're really looking for a sense of control out of all of those things, the one thing that you for sure have control over is your fitness and your nutrition. Now, it's a bit of a gamble because we've all been given a different, dealt a different hand, right? Like I said, genetically, you don't know what's down the road for you. But if you could control one aspect of maybe holding those things at bay, I was telling somebody the other day, our family, if you go to a granddad with some level of heart disease, like I know it's in there, right? So what's down the road for me at, I don't know, 20 years, 15 years, 25 years? Is it there? Maybe. But I'm going to do everything that I can to hold the monster at bay with the one thing I can control, or the two which is staying very active. I do enjoy it, but staying active and then making good decisions the best I can. So if it does rear its ugly head, is it less severe if it was on the other end of it? So I'm like, that's why I try to work with people on that. I was like, this is the thing that you actually can take your hands completely around and be in control of. You get to drive, and then from there, I do think if you get a grasp of that and you gain that confidence, whether it is going from being on the couch to actually walking a mile every single day, we talked about this before, where's that ripple effect start to come in? You're feeling better. Now, all of a sudden, you're looking at other aspects of your life where you can make positive choices that provide positive impacts for you too. It's interesting. I gave a presentation the other day and I was talking about, when I grew up, we had that transition from basic TV to then we had cable, right? And as like back when it was basic TV, you had the three news channels. You had ABC, NBC, and CBS, and it was like Dan Rather, Peter Jennings. And I was like, I can remember, because you'd watch the news all the time. The almost every, I felt like it was this way. Every single newscast at the end, when they would always have that stat of like the top 3 or 5 killers, right, in the United States, right? So it'd be like heart disease, cancer, smoking, right? There was always like this percentage of what was top on this list. And what I felt is like 20 years in this profession is, we're still dancing around the fact, and I don't know why we do it, if it's trying to make people not feel bad, but a lot of those are food and nutrition related and activity related, right? Like there's a common denominator, a common thread, whether they caused it or they sped it up, it's a common thread. So like if we have the awareness that plays a piece in it, we got to do something, and that's for me. Again, I spent my whole career trying to, help motivate or, change as many as I could through that process, because the euphoria for me in this profession is the one that you get that does it. Right. And they, just like you said, they have no idea how good they're going to feel on the other end when they start. Because when they start, it sucks so bad. But then you get that client that does lose 50, 60, 80 pounds, you drop 3 or 4 or 5 shirt sizes, pant sizes. They wake up and their feet hit the ground in the morning and they're not in as much pain. They're brushing their teeth with some renewed vigor for the day versus like, I got to get, I got to get some coffee in me. Oh, it's another day, right? Their energy changes, that that one person is so much fun because behind that one person is probably 50 other ones that are, they just never quite get over the hump. And you're like, yeah, if we could just get you over this, things would be so much better. But it's tough.
Yeah, I think there's the people that I mean have been uh, not healthy their whole life. It was, maybe it was influenced by their family, genetics, whatever, but they just were never active people. They're always amazing because they can have huge improvements. If you've seen it, they'll they'll drop 20 pounds in a month. I mean, they have these great leaps, and then they have to get to their plateau, and now it starts being marginal. And then we'll see, you know, the commitment piece of it. But I think more often than not, it's the person who was either genetically in shape, thin, whatever it is, or they were athletic or whatever. And they got away from all that. And that really happens in your late 20s, early 30s. And you see people, and uh, and then you come back to it, start kind of ramping up again because you know what you can do or should do. The mental part of it is, uh, oh my God, it's going to take me forever to get back in shape, and I like to think about it like this. How long did it take you to get out of shape? You know? And so even like that, let's just say you had a rough year. Maybe you had a surgery, orthopedic surgery or whatever, took you out of the game, all that. And, there's some, let's be honest, there's some depression involved in that because you can't physically do things. So we uh, salve that pain with food or whatever, alcohol, it doesn't matter. But if it took you a year, I always try to think about it like that. If it took you a year to get to this point, give yourself some grace that it'll take you a year to get out of it. And
Yeah.
it usually doesn't take that long, but mentally
No.
you should give yourself that, right? And I don't think people are just too hard on themselves and go, oh, man, if I don't get back to the way I was before this thing happened or before I got away from it in the next 2 weeks, well, I'm done, and like that's um, that's hard. That's just hard. I'm just creating a no-win scenario. But also, I've never been a workout in the evening. The only time I work out in the evening is because I had to, absolutely had to, because of work or kids or whatever it is. But for me, it's the first thing in the morning because I can get up earlier, and all that time, 2 hours, whatever, and still be able to get home, shower, shave, get dressed, go to work, right?
Hmm.
But for me, it's such a habit now. I don't even think about it. I have a cup of coffee, I'm out. You know, go. Whether you're walking or running or whatever it is, then I go to the gym, lift weights and stuff. Everybody's got their thing. Again, it's whatever you can repeat. It's the exercise you will do. You know, uh, and I think you find that whether it was somebody who's never been in shape and got in shape, or somebody's returning to shape, who's been an athlete or whatever, when they have that feeling like, oh yeah, that's this is where I should be, then I think they tend to put a governor on how far they're going to fall away from that. I'm not going back to that. I'm not going back to that. I might slip up a little bit here. I might put on 5 or 10 pounds or whatever it is, but I'm not going back to that. And so I just like that idea of my brother was a pretty good athlete, Mark, and he was a bodybuilder and he power lifter and all that stuff. But he had a good line about it's like savings. You should always put your money in your savings first before you pay bills, no matter how little it is, because it's a mental thing, right? Put
Hmm.
$5 in, put $500 in, whatever you can do. Same thing with exercise. Pay yourself first before the day imposes its energy on what you have to give. So I kind of like that concept. It's me first. You know, I'm gonna have to face the
And
day
it's
either way.
right. And it's find that space, right? So for years I was that same way. Now I work with clients really early. I'm doing some other things. So I like to work with people, and then midday, a little bit, I get my stuff done because it's where I have the space. Um, but yeah, you have to, yeah, take care of yourself first. You made another comment that um, I was just thinking about. What did you say?
Well, we're talking about in the grace of how much time it takes to get. You got out
Yes.
of shit.
Yeah. It's,
How to get?
yeah. So like, let's talk about that for a second. So if I'm working with somebody that has, they've been an athlete or they used to work out, the best thing about, and it's tough, right? You're like, cause you're not fighting. Sometimes you're not fighting the schedule now. You're not fighting at the soreness now. You're actually fighting your memory, right? You're fighting,
In your
you
ego.
know, this your ego of who this person was that you were before, and you're afraid that you can never get back there. And if I've talked to some athletes or active individuals coming back to it, there's a couple things. And I think you taught me this when I was younger, is you built it once, it didn't go away, right? It's like riding a bike, you know? When's the last time you rode a bike? I'm pretty, if it was like, oh, it's been 10 years, you didn't forget. You might be wobbly in the beginning, but it's not going to take you the same amount of time it took you to learn the bike when you were a kid. You might have a couple of wobbles, and the next thing you know, you're riding fairly quickly. So your muscle in your body remembers all of that. You may not be as strong right away, but it's not going to take you the same amount of time, even close, because once you start getting through the soreness and the repetitive nature of trying to get it on your schedule, all of a sudden that time condenses, and you can kind of lean into the fact that you did do this work at one point. The other analogy I had somebody say to me one time, because I had a period of where I wasn't, we had young kids, and I was like, wasn't accustomed to the time frame with which, I wanted to spend at the gym or whatever, because it just couldn't fit it in. And this individual said to me, he goes, I want you to think about it like this. You built a sports car, and for right now, it's parked in the garage. But at any time, you could probably take that sports car out and let it rip 0 to 60, but then you got to park it back in there for right now. So in the interim, can you just take it out for a little bit? Can you take it for a spinner on the block? So at the analogy was like, we had these two little baby boys, it was like, could you do 50 push-ups and 50 squats and 50 sit-ups like before you brush your teeth, which takes you a couple minutes, just to let that car run a little bit, just get the blood flowing in there a little bit. And he goes, and then over time, you are going to get back to the pattern you want. And, I love that one. And then a thing that I've said to clients before is like, I always envision the sports car that's been parked in the back of a farm field. I always think of like some 67 Mustang, and you've seen people do this. Now I have no skill set to be able to pull this off with a vehicle, but we've seen it, right? Got this old 67, maybe Shelby sitting out there. Somebody's going to torture me because I'm pretty sure it's wrong, but like Mustang, it's a great sports car. It's out in the back of this field. It's rusty, but just because it's been out in that field, collecting rust, doesn't mean you couldn't pull that back into the garage, buff the rust off, repaint it, retune and rebuild the engine, or put a new engine in there and drive that thing again. And so I like that aspect too, of that mental process of somebody who has been an athlete or they've been active. Like, it's all there. The foundation is there. We need to shine it up a little bit and let it go again. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just an interesting, I get it. I think this day and age, people are struggling. Like you said, go to the grocery store and you look around. What troubles me the most as a professional in this aspect is we're racing a problem in conjunction with technology. And so now, instead of, oh my God, Matt told me I got to put a year in on this to even like remotely get me back to where I was, there's now things out on the market that, well, I could just do that. I could just take this I could have this medication. I could have this surgery. And I understand the plight of individuals and wanting to do that and to speed it up. But my concern then is, like we talked about before, what's it look like on the back end? What's the health ramifications for you? And ultimately, I think the part that bothers me the most is the lessons that are learned in that process for you and your own personal confidence. You lose them all. You don't learn what it's like to make those choices. Like you were saying, you don't learn how to gamify your day in and day out. And the person that you become on that journey, I think, much more than the physical results that you'll actually feel, which we know are a byproduct of it. But that transition for you mentally, emotionally, and with your confidence is the thing that I think is so important. Because you were talking about, somebody might lose weight. Like say I take somebody that's over 300 pounds and they've been there for a long time. Now they're 280. And if I'll try to talk to an individual like that, I'm like, okay, this is the new you. Our goal now, and you already brought it up, is I'm not going to be that guy again or girl again. Now 280 is my new marker, but maybe I still got like 60 to lose. All right. Well, now 260. Okay. Well, that's our new water level. Now we may fluctuate. There's a vacation and maybe like 265, 270. But we got some work to do. Then it's 250. Well, that's the new you. So then, like you said, but in that process, the things that are learned, as I find, I very rarely have someone go all the way back to the beginning because of just how they feel and who they become, that they just are like, no way, no way do I want to feel like that again. And I feel, again, like I said, I feel for people on their plate that they're in. And I just get concerned when people are looking for quicker avenues, that they miss out on that journey that's tough, but that the lessons that are learned and who they personally can become along the way versus just fitting into the next set of genes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, having been in sports, and team sports and things most of my life, I'm used to being yelled at to do things, and drill things and do it, you just got to do what you got to do but you learn that repetition and, practice, gets you prepared for competition, right? So that's why you do what you do and test yourself and practice with your partners and all that thing. But you cannot rely on somebody yelling at you. At some point, you realize that they're helping you do what you need to do, and then you have to retain that information and go, I know what I need to do. Now, and the reason I bring that up is certain people, they need a trainer. They need to be told. First of all, they don't know what's even safe, what to do. Okay, that I get that. But some people are very dependent on being instructed. Uh, I'm not, but I've been instructed a lot in my life. So I almost am kind of the opposite of that. Like, I'm good. It doesn't mean that I can't learn things and all that kind of stuff. But there are people who, I'm sure they come to you, Luke, what am I going to do? How do I do this? Every day, right? Somebody's going to do it. And that's okay because they're willing to ask the question. But I'm not your conscience. Okay. I can teach you some things. But at some point, you got to take that on board and own it, and so if I am not here telling you to do that other set, would you do that other set? That's the thing that I think people have difficulty with, especially people who've never really been active in their lives. If the instructor is not there, the trainer's not there, I don't train. No, you do what you got to do. You do whatever you can do every day. Let's say you go on your trip. Are you expecting everybody that you train not to train anymore? While
Right.
I'm gone? Now I'm sure some people think, hey, oh God, good, he's gone for a week. I'm not got a week off. But People have to learn, these are the things you do. You've got good results out of that. You feel better because you got good results out of that. You don't need me staring at you, telling you to do it. It's fun when we're doing good group, CrossFit and those kind of things, right? But you still need to know on those days when none of that exists, you better be doing something, you know. And I think when that kind of clicks with people and they kind of take ownership of uh, their health, their exercise, their just movement, uh, that's when they start feeling really good about themselves. But
Mm-hmm.
it's the old line about it. It's not it's what you do when people aren't looking, that counts. I mean, just go out and do it, and why do you do it?
And
Because
I
it's
think
for
that's
me.
fun for me.
Yeah.
Right. And it's fun because you'll see those same individuals who are like, they go on a week's vacation. They'll send you a message of like, we'll have conversations before they go or whatever. Like, hey, well, I was gone. I was gone 7 days. I was able to walk for 5. I actually looked up a gym. I went for 3 days, or, maybe they're still in town. We work out 5 days a week together, but hey, I did something this week. And then you'll see this. They're almost shocked. Yeah. You know what I did on Saturday? I put my shoes on and I went and ran for 20 minutes. And you didn't tell them to do that's that transition where you can see them going, I just like being active. And maybe it went from 2 days a week, now it's 3, now it's 5, now it's not the same thing, but I'm out in the yard playing baseball with my kids running around versus just sitting on the couch. Like I got to get up and move my body, or I got to something. That's where you start to see like that they're enjoying how they, again, having that control of the thing that they can do anywhere at any time. And it's not a trainer and it's not a gym. It's like, it doesn't matter. We've traveled a ton. I've been in some of the, you know, interesting places across the world and in places without workout stuff. And like, I gotta move, gotta do something. And that's fun. That's when you get to see, somebody's like, they're taking hold of their life and they feel better doing it. And it's from a professional standpoint, it's never going to go away. Um, but I think the hope is you just want to see as many people as you can at least give it their best shot. It's like we talked about somebody with their profession,
For
like
a shot.
put your or a shot, right? And we talked about people with their careers, like put yourself in a spot where you can feel good going to work every single day on purpose, where you feel valuable, and hopefully that value, that effort lets you reap the rewards financially. And you were talking about making those deposits. Same thing with your physical fitness. Hopefully, you're moving forward every single day, making those deposits that then you can reap these rewards as best as you can, because, you know, that's exciting. And I just don't think enough people know how much better things would be for them if that, you were talking about the morning deposit, but if that one deposit was made every single day, even a little bit, it doesn't have to be running 5 miles, just a little bit. The compounding interest on that is huge.
Well, I
And
remember when all you guys were young, and of course, you know, mom's always been athletic and done events, and but when you got little kids, you know this drill. I mean, it's dirty diapers and bottles and all that kind of stuff. But I remember, uh, particularly in Minnesota, it was at night. It's uh, crunchy snow. It's cold out. There's like 4 layers of stuff you're wearing. Out, just going out and jogging a mile. Okay, just and then come home and we'd switch places. And there was something extremely satisfying about that. You know, just anything, that made you feel like you were doing something positive, for yourself. And we made it work, right, between us. You just got to make it work. It's got to happen. And so we can all find excuses not to do it. It's the world's full of them, and There's reasons that make it difficult, and there's reasons that make it easy not to do it, you know? So they're all over the place. Oh, well, you know, I sprained my finger. I can't go to the gym today, whatever. You'll come up with it, the evil person will be there to have to do it.
Always.
Um, but
Always. Yeah.
you're better off going to the gym when you don't feel like it and stretching and going home than not doing anything. There's just something about, there are days that you can't do what you normally would do on that day. And so do other things that you can do on that day, but don't skip it, completely skip it, because it's easy
Or
to
you don't
stack
feel
it.
like it, which, and we've talked about it before, like the days you don't feel like it, more often than not, are your best workout days.
Sure. Yeah.
Like
I don't
you
know why that
overcame
is, but
that. Yeah, and I think I don't either. And I think it might be something about that mental overcoming you got there. Well, I'm here, to move around a little bit, and all of a sudden you're warmed up. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to push it. And the next thing you know, you've already put the shoes on. You've already got there. You already moved around a little bit. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I started to feel a little better here. And then you leave, an hour later and go, yeah, I just did more than I did last week, or I did more than I did last month. And I walked in here today, and it doesn't, you'll hear people that like to work out. Like it's always the case. The day you don't want to go or don't feel like going for some reason, and maybe it's just mentally, maybe you don't put on, you don't have your best weight, time, whatever inside the gym, but just because you did, like you said, going out and it was cold and running that mile, you leave and go, I feel way better than I did when I got here. And that's it. And I go, okay, maybe my day, if my day's ahead of me, or if it's the end of the day, I'm gonna go home and take a shower, and I'm gonna get a good night's rest because I, did something with my body a little bit. Well, I think for me, this is a conversation that will always, and I know we're 10 episodes in, and I probably have referenced it, I'm sure, most of them. And that's just where I've spent most of my adult life working with people. And I think it'll keep coming back. But that's my hope, is we can instill a little bit of confidence that you can do it. And you have no idea how good you're going to feel if you can try to control the one thing I think you actually can control in your life, with being active and stuff like that. So, well, that's it for us today.